look here at testing procedures for accelerator position sensor or the throttle in a truck. These are often called TPS. We might call the sensors TPS sensors. More accurately, it's an app sensor. So we'll have a quick look at how to test these. There's a couple different versions. The two main ones that we commonly run into are a dual potentiometer. The other one will be where it has a single potentiometer and then it's got an idle validation switch, or an IVS as it's abbreviated. And the point of having two switches or two sensors in here is just for safety, to make sure that what's the ECU is seeing is actually what's happening with the pedal, and we don't have a runaway or an accelerating vehicle with no one actually stepping on the throttle. So in this case, we've got a 5-volt reference, so we'll check that first. This is a dual potentiometer type, so we'll have two pins that are a 5-volt reference. One supplies one potentiometer, one supplies the other, and then likewise on the ground side. Okay, so we'll verify our 5 volts, and then we'll come over and we're going to check the sensor output or signal wire for one potentiometer as it sweeps, and we can see that as the pedal physically moves, the wipers in these potentiometers are also moving across their resistive strips, and that'll return us a dropped voltage through that resistive strip. Okay, so we can see on the low end here for this one, we don't want to see 0 volts. We want there to be some voltage left to push through, or some resistance left in that circuit. And then also on the upper end, we also see we don't reach that full 5-volt reference. We have about a half a volt left over to push through that resistance. So we got about a half a volt on either side. That's exactly what we want to see. We don't want it to be 0. If it was 0, that would be a short, and that would indicate a fault to the ECU. And then likewise, if we had a full 5 volts, that would be a short high or a high voltage fault. Okay, so we don't actually want either of those. We need a little bit of resistance left at either end. So it's actually going to sweep through about 0.5 of a volt to about 4.5 volts through its range. And as we watch this, we're just going to slowly move the pedal and look for the voltage to drop out or skip or show us any kind of indication of an issue on the wiper or the pickups, anywhere there on that coil. And we can see we have a nice smooth signal. We've also got the graphing scanner going on up here, or an oscilloscope, to monitor it as well. So we'll just check the other sensor, and we can see these signals are opposite each other. Okay, and that is what we would expect to see. Okay, this one's reading is just a little bit different. We only dropped to 0.8, and then we go up to 4.8. Okay, so we have 0.2 of a volt, or 200 millivolts left at the end of its sweep. Again, good clean signal here. So these are going to work opposite one another, again, for safety. So the ECU will always know if this pedal is being pressed down or not. It doesn't rely on just one sensor ever. So by being opposite each other, they can kind of work each other out, and also builds in a redundant sensor. So we're going to introduce a glitch, a kind of a common dropout signal here, and we'll just do this test again. So we're going to run through our little sweep, go as slow as we can, and again we're just going to monitor that volt gauge over here, and we're looking for any kind of skipping or dropout issues at all. And there we go, we've got a problem here at the upper end of the pedal travel. So again, if I come up, we can see we've lost signal here. We've got a dropout, and it's kind of bounced around in the low range. So there's some kind of damage or some kind of issue here on this potentiometer and the wiper on the pickup, and that would require us to replace that sensor. All right, and we can go and check our other potentiometer Again, this is why we need to make sure we check both. We don't ever just check one sensor wire, because this one is perfectly fine. There's no issue on this potentiometer. Okay, so when we replace this sensor, we replace this whole unit, but there's actually two sensors inside of it. So that's important to understand when we're dealing with combination sensors like this, or redundant sensors with a safety switch or sensor built into them. We need to make sure that we're checking both sides.